Hello and welcome to episode 98 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your host, end-time Foundry author, Drew Rogan 1701. With me is a man who was one level 2 minutes ago and is another level right now, Markhawkman.
Hi.
And we have the vice president of the galaxy's fifth largest comic book consortium, Greendragoon.
Actually, we're up to fourth. We absorbed one of them.
You Ferengi, you. And welcome with us a man who is definitely a Ferengi, or at least he sure sounds like one, Bazag.
I despise those assertions because sometimes I don't speak like a Ferengi. Only sometimes, though.
Only sometimes. When it suits your purposes.
Yes. When I pretend I'm not a Ferengi on subspace. With a holo disguise and everything.
So that was pretty good, right? That was the first time I've had to sort of live improvise an intro. And I thought I did pretty good, because I forgot to write one.
It's funny because I have to live improvise my responses every week.
Yeah, we are a barely scripted show. I script about the first minute, and that's about it. But we actually have quite a lot of stuff going on. For starters, we've learned through various things popping up on Tribble that Season 10 may go live on Tuesday. And you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. Downtime.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For the Foundry.
Especially with all of the... And even then, we got a ton of work to do with moving all of our missions and making sure things work with the new Foundry doors.
We got new doors and all kinds of things. I went on to check the latest Tribble build today, and actually a lot of the missing doors that were on your list, Mark, were added, like Ferenginar and things in that vicinity. However, we're still missing a lot of doors down in Klingon space.
Yeah, Taco said that he was planning on adding most of them, and one of the things I noticed about a lot of the things that I listed in Klingon space, is, as I added to that list, is that they have a special function attached to them, which makes me wonder if they're going to be added.
Like the ones where you used to go up to it and launch a PvP thing from it?
Well, I mean, there's stuff like Otha, where you fly up to it, you enter a ground war zone that's a three-way fight between the Federation, Klingons, and Borg.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. They may choose
now
not
that
to.
I think about it, Otha actually does have a door set associated with it. So, who knows?
Yeah, who knows indeed. Well, I tweeted Taco and Zeronius Rex to remind them and gave them a screenshot, and we will see if anything comes of it. But nice to have Ferenginar as a door. We have also the Breen system as a door. That's going to be good. And luckily for me, the flotilla is a door, the Romulan flotilla, which brings me to the room where we are standing. I've started building this. I've started building this for a new mission. It doesn't have a ceiling at the moment. The ceiling is off to the one side while I was building it. So this is going to be a command center on the flotilla. On the, I have no idea how to pronounce it, but the Dehu, the big Romulan ship that you actually go onto for some of the interior parts of the flotilla. And the mission is going to be essentially, you're going to be running from Tal Shiar attacks. Like I think there's this sort of opportunity to insert an episode into those first few Romulan missions where you're on the run and being constantly attacked, and you have to figure out how they're tracking you. And one of the scenes is going to be, you're going to come into this command center, which is going to have all sorts of consoles and things, and Datan is going to be here. Commander Tamara is going to be here because he won't be dead yet. And no one's going to give you the time of day because you're a brand new captain in the fleet. You're, have a dinky little warbird, and nobody's going to pay any attention to you, even though you discovered something that might lead you to a traitor in the midst. And so you're going to actually go up to the top level, which you can kind of see up there, and there's going to be ramps around to where you can get up to it.
I'll be back in a moment.
Baz will show you.
Yes, I'm just running for now.
There is going to be a hallway back there, which will lead you to the upper section where all the intelligence analysts are going to be. I figured you'd keep those guys off to the side and they can just, send you a text message when they have something. And you're going to find somebody who actually believes you. And they're going to figure it out, and you're going to be able to track the extraneous signal to somebody's ship, and then you're going to have a nice run and gun fight through the corridors to find the traitor or traitors. It was suggested to me that we make the traitor Tovan Kev.
That might be a little hard with continuity.
Maybe a clone of Tovan.
Ooh, there you go.
Now, I had the thought actually of you could make it so at the end of the mission there's some suspicion about Tovan Kev. So if you're one of those people who puts him on a shelf and never uses him ever again, now you have an excuse to say, well, because of this episode, I don't trust him anymore. So he's going in the brig forever.
Honestly, though,
But if you're one of those,
considering it's Romulans, I'd be a little surprised if there wasn't a traitor somewhere in the midst.
there's always a traitor somewhere.
Well, as the recent FE has shown us, that just because you're a Romulan and a traitor doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person.
Well, and the other thing is, you got to figure is who are going to be the officers in the fleet of the Romulan Republic at this time. You're going to have a lot of them are going to be defectors from the Tal Shiar, from the Romulan Star Navy, and some of those might not be trustworthy.
Yeah, I have always wondered why the Romulan Star Empire hasn't just, manipulated situations to put, more spies. Because, they don't even have to do anything. They just have to, send people in there and make sure that their signals and communications don't get interrupted with or detected. Yeah.
And that's going to be a big part of what this mission talks about, is that, those early days of the Republic where they're still trying to figure out how to be a military and, how to integrate all these people into a fleet. And some of it's going to go wrong. But one of the reasons I started building this map and this mission is because A, the flotilla is going to be a door, so that's perfect. And B, we're getting the full-size ground asset starships, which this is on the Starbase 24 map, which is absolutely huge. And we'll have plenty of room to stick some Romulan ships outside the window. I may even make it so that because the big Romulan ship, which I can never remember the name of, is
the Derridex.
No, the other one.
Pax.
Hapax, yeah, is in the Foundry. So I might see if I can get it so that you can see the wings outside the windows. So it looks like you're on that ship. We'll see. I might be able to build it inside the ship. That would be quite cool. Inside the ship model. Like Primar was doing with his shuttle bay.
Too tricky, but doable.
So that's our map here. But this is a good example of a map that was not going to be nearly as good just months ago, because we didn't have this cool green glass. We didn't have these awesome floors, which I'll probably add some more detail to. In just a week, or whenever downtime ends, we're going to have those awesome ships. And yes, Primar, it is heavily influenced by the first regular episode of the Battlestar Galactica Remastered series called 33, which is the working title here, but I'm going to replace that, obviously. So, it's a little similar. It's going to be, the fleet's going to be under fire, under constant attack. People are going to be down on sleep, and it's going to be up to you to save the day. And that will cement you with the...
which, of course, is
Republic
pretty
leadership.
much where the cryptic story goes with it anyway. So, hey.
A little bit. But it's going to be built to slot in there. So it's going to take place, during those first few Romulan missions, after Virenat, but before you discover New Romulus. Which actually brought up an interesting point to my mind is, the other week we were talking about using cryptic characters and, what was low risk and what was high risk. And there was sort of a category we forgot, which is characters that are already dead. Like Commander Tamar, who dies in the level 11-ish Romulan mission. So obviously for anyone, this is going to be a Romulan mission, so any Romulan players joining the Foundry will join after that, so he's going to already be dead for them. So I can essentially do what I want with this character, knowing where he's going to end up.
Drogon, do you know if you can actually use the early turning point zone as Foundry locations? Because I think it's a different section because it's called There Were Three instead of New Romulus.
Yeah, but that won't be the door. The door will be at the flotilla. Because when Season 10 rolls around in the new sector space revamp, that will become a Foundry door. I checked it.
Well, that reminds me of one of the things that's always been at the top of my list since LOR for ground map. The first map you see when you beam down to Dawa 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a neat map and unfortunately very hard to replicate, even though we have all sorts of new Romulus assets. We don't have a good base map. Exactly.
And it is so awesome looking.
It's very cool.
Oh, well.
So anyway, let's move on to more news because of inconveniently timed maintenance last time. We were not able to show you any of the new stuff being added to the Foundry that was on Tribble. So I went this week and made a video, which Dragoon will play now, whenever he's ready. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the new assets being added to the Foundry with Season 10. These are up on Tribble right now. What we're going to start with is the large-scale ships. As you can see, I'm demonstrating this by running around on top of an Excelsior. These have been added to the Detail Objects tab for indoor and outdoor maps. And as you can see, they are more or less scale to the player. To me, they look just a tad bit small, when you get next to things like the bridge areas that should seem big but maybe aren't. Then again, sometimes those in the shows look bigger than they actually would be on the outside models. So you see they're solid, you can run around on them. They are very large. So we're going to get back to the ships in a second because we're going to go through the star bases that have been added. We have the player star bases in each tier. This is tier 1, and you get the under construction and the completed versions. Here's tier 2 for the Fed side. Now all of these stations have been added to ground as well. That was maybe in error, but Taco has left those available on ground, which is great. Here's Fed tier 3. You can see these can be very useful. Tier 4. And tier 5. Now we're on the KDF side. We have tier 1. You can see this will be useful for fleets, can make missions for their own fleet mates. Here's tier 2. And they can, keep it updated with the progress of their own starbase. Tier 4. Actually, that was tier 3. This is tier 4. And tier 5. I'm doing this just on my test character because I didn't want to take the time to demo record any of this, so pardon my Miranda. And also get a selection of other space stations. This is a Cardassian station, and over there you can see Drozana. We have quite a wide selection of new dry docks. You can see several that are kind of in the old style but different colors. Look a lot like the ones from, say, Star Trek The Motion Picture, that sort of era. Got a brown one that's got some more curved walls to it. A gray version of that. We have Earth Station McKinley, which people may recognize from several TNG episodes. And the Star Trek Nemesis style dry dock. One of the fun things you can do with McKinley Station is you can put ships inside of it very easily. You just take the McKinley Station and increase the Y value by just a very small amount and fiddle with the X and Y, or X and Z's, and there you go. Now we also have Earth Space Dock. The TMP version, or not TMP, Star Trek 3 is when it first appeared. You can see it's quite large. And we also got the original version of Earth Space Dock that launched with the game, which you will see just a little bit later in the video. But we did encounter this type of station several other times in episodes that were set around the galaxy in TNG, so conceivably there could be more than one. Now I tested the doors here, and sadly the doors do not open. And you see, I will ram them in just a moment. There you go. So they have collision. However, you can spawn inside Earth Space Dock. How cool is that? 3.8 is the Y value you need to spawn inside. Now we also have these maps, or these stations from Kronos Orbit. Has some shipyards there. And Jupiter Station, which is great. That actually doesn't appear in-game anywhere. The story is it was built for something else. Some unreleased content, an episode perhaps, and was just sitting in the files, and Taco was very kind to put it in for us. And here we have this Ferengi station. Now I confess I don't actually know where this comes from in game. It might be another unreleased content kind of a thing, but it's kind of nifty. And here's a nice one. This is the vault where Opus X remnants were holed up in the episode entitled The Vault. It is extremely large. So you have to get quite far away from it for you to even see most of it. Here's the old Earth Space Dock. Good for reminiscing. Good for... personally, I kind of like the design, so I definitely am going to use it somewhere. And finally, the Utopia Planitia station. Alright, now we're going to take a bigger look at the ground ships in order. So we have the Voyager Aero Shuttle, the Akira class, standard Akira, the Ambassador, the Armitage variant for the Akira, the Avenger, the Larathon, Chimera, we have a couple styles of runabouts here. We have one with the engines off and one with the engines on. The Eclipse, the Excelsior, which we saw before I was running around on, the Galaxy, which has been updated to Thomas the Cat's new model. I forget exactly the name of this one, but the little escort. The Guardian class. Good old standard Intrepid for your Elite Force reminiscing. Miranda. Nova. The Mighty Odyssey, which is one of the, probably the largest Fed model we got. This one is labeled as Olympic, but it's actually not technically the Olympic, it's one of the variants. The Pathfinder, still without the fin. The Phantom Escort. The Prometheus. The Sovereign update, I forget the name again. The Defiant update. The Scryer. The Intel ships are quite large. There's the Standard Sovereign. The Steam Runner. Tempest. We have a selection of work bees. Some landing struts, different colors. We have two varieties of the Yellowstone, one with engines on, one with engines off. And also the Ferengi shuttle for your Chemosite smuggling needs. Just one Klingon ship, the Moog, and several Romulan ships, which are also quite large, including the Delenn, the Mogai, several versions of the Taliss, an old style one, and the sort of decrepit, cannibalized versions from the Viridat colony. And we also have the Taliss. And the Valdor. Also have the Romulan shuttles, landed versions and with no landing struts. The landed Vaadwaur Manassa. And the Vaadwaur shuttle, or actually fighter, more accurately. Now we're going to talk about some of the new assets. We got a lot of the animated stuff from Earth Space Stock, so you can essentially fill in the blanks when Taco gets that map working. These are the turbolift doors. The little doors from the Taylor. As you can see, you can use these anywhere. We have holographic displays, ones that do not move like these, and ones that do move in a circular manner. These are the ones from the hologram of Earth Space Stock traffic control that you see when you visit ESD. And you can see very faintly in the background one of the roving shuttles that you can place down. These actually revolve on a set pattern to simulate traffic. Lots of them have very, very wide patterns. We're going to have to work out exactly what the coordinates are going to be to actually try and place these things. Here you can see the ship traffic. We have several ships that are on set orbits that you would see outside ESD, like the Guardian and the Vulcan ship. Here are the doors from Club 47. And we got the club lights. Now, these are not all the assets. We have lots of little holograms from all over ESD, not to mention the invisible barriers that we will have to put down ourselves.
Okay, and we're back.
And we're back. So I didn't go into every single one of the new assets in that video, and I apologize for the some of the clips went just to completely blank. I do not know why that happened, and obviously I didn't check the video after I rendered it. So anyway, the other thing I didn't go into was the two new maps that we're getting. One of which is our space dock, which I believe is still not working quite correctly. You can't, haven't set the actual ground level to the actual ground level, but I'm sure Taco is working on that. The other one is the observation lounge, which is called the diplomacy room. You may remember it from such missions as ones that I can't remember the name of. The one where you go and talk to the Cardassians in orbit of Bajor, things like that.
Diplomatic dispute or something.
Yeah. And the first contact.
First contact, yeah.
Which I don't think are in the game anymore. So, it's nice to have that map around. You don't have to build your own.
The diplomatic investigations, I don't think are either.
Yeah. Because
you have to actually fly into the you had to fly into the zone for those ones.
Also, the diplomat things didn't appear in your mission log, so once you accepted it, you had to remember which exploration cluster you needed to fly to.
The other interesting thing about that map is that it actually has sort of a baked-in backdrop. The starfield and the planet outside the windows are not something that you can change, and the actual, the backdrops that we set normally for indoor maps don't shine through anywhere. So that kind of limits the use. Maybe you kind of have to use it whenever you're only in orbit of a planet.
Isn't the planet used for that one Cardassia?
I do not know. It's kind of gray and blobby.
Well, I mean, because Cardassia was basically a desert world that in the TV show looked kind of gray brown and half dead.
I know they updated. Someone was saying the other day that they updated the texture for Bajor in the game to actually use Bajor instead of Cardassia texture. Which those two planets would be quite different. Anyway, we also, in non-Foundry news this week, learned of a couple new featured episodes. Delta Flight, and I forget the name of the other one. Delta Flight and Blood of the Ancients. So we're going to get into the Iconian War here. I can only guess that at some point we'll be getting, the Herald enemies in the Foundry. Because they're usually pretty good about getting the new enemy mobs in there. So that'll be nice. We'll have those ships and ground-based mobs. And let's see. We're getting Morale Paris, the actual voice actress. That's pretty neat. Because she only had one scene in the show, but I thought she was really good in it.
Yeah,
it's just been a bit. Go ahead.
I feel the need to point out that there were actually several people who played Morale in the show. It's just that Cicero was the only one who played a non-baby version, I guess is the best way to put it.
You are correct
she-
about that.
The character was
The adult
only
version.
in the finale because, I mean, she was born in the finale.
Mhm. What, you mean they didn't have anything where you went forward and saw her in the future or anything crazy like that other than the finale?
I don't know. I mean, we saw adult
Sounds like something Voyager would do.
Naomi Wildman and Icheb, but I don't think...
No, we didn't. I'm pretty sure.
But speaking of Naomi Wildman, Vanessa Branch would be awesome.
It would be great to get her and Icheb to voice those characters, because those characters have been in Stowe since day one, along with Morale Paris, who I assume we'll probably see included in the new episodes, as well as some voiceover for her old ones. So that'll be good. But yeah, I mean, well, lots of stuff coming up in the game. So let's see. I've already talked about what I've been working on, so let's go around the room. Baz, what have you been working on? Baz has muted himself or walked away from the mic. So
There we go. I muted myself. Sorry. I had to hunt around to find the unmute button. But yeah, I've been focusing on my Delta recruit, trying to level them up. This is my Persia, Saurian Section 1, Section 30, who's my recruit for the Federation, and he is 24, and at a level 50, level 21 KDF. Level 50 KDF, level 21 Romulan. That's been, unfortunately, my focus. And the Foundry.
Probably not alone on that one when we asked the other guys what they've been working on. So, Green Dragoon.
I'm also going to have to claim distraction by way of Delta recruiting. Got my Delta recruit up to 51 now. But I've been definitely eyeing out some of the new incoming ships. I've got some ideas for a couple of them to use in part 3.
Question for you. I think you put it in the show notes for last week's episode, but did you discover whether you could put the Delta symbol in the Foundry?
Yes, you can. Unfortunately, there's no alt code for it, so there's no quick, easy way to do it. You got to either find it online or pull it out of the Windows character map application to get it.
And paste it in.
Yeah. I included it in last week's show notes. So you can copy paste it from there if you want to.
Pack says that he wants to write a Delta recruit objective dialogue for some of his Ghost of War mission. So
yeah.
Be needing that.
So the character is supported. You're just going to have to copy paste it in though.
Baz just put it in chat, so there you go. All right, Mark, have you been doing anything other than Delta recruits?
I did actually log in because I was curious if the game might accidentally dump my Foundry character into the tutorial, but no. So I guess
your Delta character can't be a Foundry, or your Foundry character can't be a Delta recruit.
Well, to become a Delta recruit, you have to go through the tutorial, and
yeah.
I don't remember if she actually ever went through the tutorial in 12.
No, you just kind of start off as a...
No, I don't think so.
It would have amused me to have my Foundry character as a Delta recruit.
That would be kind of fun.
Yeah, no Foundry character can actually go through the tutorial. Because they just start up in the world, and and I've got to get up to that certain level to even be able to pick up missions. I'm not sure if they can even pick up missions now, because I haven't even tried.
I think you can still.
I've tinkered with it. The only Foundry character I have that's low enough level to have that issue is the one I have on Tribble, and she had actually came to the conclusion that the easiest way to have her gain levels was to go to Defera, of all places. Because if you go to Defera, you can cycle through all of the daily missions and get XP for those. Because apparently the game doesn't care what level you are when you go to Defera.
Yeah, I know I rated the Deep Space Encounters, the high-end ones, with my kill button, and to get mine out of ensign status.
You know, one thing I was just remembering that happened is that on Twitter, Taco was listening to one of our previous shows and made the comment that he likes listening to us try and figure things out. And so I commented back that, and probably gets a kick out of how wrong we are. So Taco, we will continue to entertain you, hopefully, by trying to figure things out and being wrong. So, Dragoon, I believe.
Tell us how we were wrong.
Yes, we would love to be corrected. Dragoon, I believe you have a review.
I do. Recently, SirBoulevard was kind of asking me to kind of give some feedback on how we can improve as a Foundry author, and I realized that I had not really played many of his Foundry missions, so I took it upon myself to kind of start playing through some of his. I started his Honor of series. Yesterday I played through Honor of Ferasa, and I'll probably do the other two in the coming weeks. So a brief synopsis is that as a KDF officer, you were called in to assist in a internal matter that has occurred on Ferasa, which is the homeworld of the Ferasans. They're wonderful KDF cat species that are, I guess the Cations are technically an offshoot of.
I think they're an offshoot of the Cations.
I think it's the other way around. I think the Cations left Ferasa, at least according to all the DOF missions and whatnot. There was the Cation diaspora. But either way, you head down to Ferasa and find that they have exiled one of their clans for dishonorable conduct. But this clan is not going quietly and is up to something, and just you were asked to be brought in to figure out what it is, because they fear it will have widespread diplomatic repercussions outside of just Ferasa. First thing I got to say is that SirBoulevard goes into incredibly deep detail into Ferasan culture, which up until this has been a very only lightly touched on. Obviously, we have what details that come out in the DOF assignments, but those details are very scant. We know that they were began engaging in genetic engineering, and that the Cations split off and left as a result of this. He takes it even further and flushes out the entire clan system, how their hierarchy is structured. I had to look it up, but I can tell that some of the details are a little bit based on the Genseti, which are the animated series race that the Frasans are kind of based on, basically due to licensing problems. But at the same time, he really kind of flushes this out in his own detail, and it's really kind of cool to see, like, just all the detail that he puts into this, down to Ferasan mannerisms, and concepts like their relationship with Kate, and just their general view of things. Let's see. That alone makes this a story worthwhile. That said, I mean, beyond that, the dialogue is good. It's got a good the tone and mannerisms felt really solid for a Star Trek piece. All of the discussions moved very well and smoothly. He makes frequent use of the species tag, especially for other Ferasans. So he'll put in brackets the name of the species ahead of any dialogue choices that are specifically for those species. He ends up using them. I'm sorry. Did you say something, Mark?
I was just say, I think he did that with Orions too, in both Honor of Ferasa and the other ones.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other places where he puts other species in the selection. I would say it'd be cool if you could work in some dialogue triggers to kind of thin out, because I mean, you find that even on a single map, you can find a lot of instances where you keep running into the Ferasan tag. Given that once they pick it the first time, you kind of have a way of telling that the character is a Ferasan. It would be cool if they could automatically pick the Ferasan dialogue, or thin out to only Ferasan specific dialogue once the first Ferasan tag is picked. Found the dialogue very engaging. It was very nice to see, like I said, all of the subtle details that he puts into how the Ferasans speak, and all the thought he's put into what the Ferasans are as a species. I would say some of it, his exposition could be, it'd be cool to have it a little filtered in a little bit more. In some cases, it would be nice if there was a little bit more explanation. It's kind of a really tricky thing, because you don't want to info dump on the player, but at the same time, you kind of got to be wary that the player may not have gone to the back room to read all about Ferasan history, and that even if the player or the character captain might know something more about Ferasans, that probably the player doesn't. So, I mean, we kind of seen in Star Trek all the time where they try to work in this obvious explanations into regular dialogue, and like things like, I already know how this obvious thing is such. Things like that. It's a really tricky thing. It'd be cool if you could kind of work in some of that, especially for the Ferasan players, because while they are playing Ferasans, and it kind of it can be, they can miss some details because they're basically not taking it from the role of an outsider. Let's see. The overall plot itself was good. I found the things drag just a little bit around the outcast camp and the subsequent secret base. It would be nice if you'd sprinkled in like a few more breadcrumbs to kind of keep the player going. So it's like, discover this little thing, and this little thing's lead to this little thing leads to this thing, and then we get to the big reveal. Oh, we found this. So be a little bit more of that would be cool, just to kind of keep whetting the player's appetite. There's one issue with the plot at the very end, and I'm trying to say this so I don't spoil anything. At the very end, you end up destroying a Federation ship, and the one of the characters, a Romulan Republic ambassador, says that she'll basically apply political pressure so that there won't be any backlash from this. As much as whether or not the Federation ship was acting as a jerk, there is no way you would get away with destroying a Federation ship and then just be able to shrug it off by putting in political pressure. I don't know exactly the best way to handle that, but just a thought of mine. My last comment is related to the story would be that he has Worf as the mission giver, and he also has you returning to Worf at the very end. My personal feelings is that you don't need him. He really has nothing to do with the story, and I'm not sure if he would be the most logical choice. I can understand the how cool it is to use Worf and all that stuff, but I don't think your story needs it. I think it'll do just as good without him. Let's see. Visual-wise, he uses a combination of some stock and modified maps. He at the very beginning he has a where you beam down to the Ferasa capital, and it's very nicely done. It's mostly a custom-built interior with overlooking a modification of the Deferi ground zone, or the Deferi like ground map from the Deferi series, not the Borg one. But it's very nicely done. My only comment on that would be that he uses a lot of Federation assets, which are very obviously Federation. Now, some of those are like consoles that have probably since were less Federation looking when they originally built them, and then when they did the whole big LCARS pass, it probably became more Federation. But still, I mean, he's got Federation sliding doors, and a Federation transporter, and a Federation consoles, and all that stuff. And it'd be nice if you could find alternatives to that to make it look a little more alien.
Well, one thing I thought of is that I don't think we actually have any sliding doors at all that aren't Federation.
No, but we do have some doors that you can trigger away.
We will have, whenever season 10 downtime ends, the turbolift doors from ESD, which only have a picture of a turbolift on them and no Starfleet or Federation symbols.
Okay.
Things like that. And we'll have the little doors from the changing rooms in the Taylor area that open and close. So those are possibilities.
There's two styles that I really, really want to see. That would be the Romulan style that you see in the FE, and also the Klingon doors that they use in the mission where the Romulan Republic players choose their allegiance.
Oh, Khitomer?
Yeah.
Talking about the Khitomer
doors would be awesome.
Those are extremely cool doors.
Yeah. Another thing that comes to mind is the sliding door on the Azura, the revamped Azura, that automatically swipe up and down when you get close to them.
Yeah, another thing about we actually have those door assets, but in an immobile form.
Yeah. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so getting back to map design, as you get further in, he falls more and more back on stock maps. Especially with the hidden base, he's used a science interior, which I don't think is the best. It doesn't really convey underground laboratory very well. I would say it kind of feels like all of the visual work is kind of weighted very heavily towards the beginning of the mission versus the end. So it'd be nice if it basically ramps down versus it'd be nice if it was ramping up to the more grandiose views towards the end of the mission. Gameplay-wise, combat was moderate. There were obviously spurts, especially at the beginning, where it's mostly dialogue, but that made sense. His big key showcase mob was Epos that had been basically were reskinned Fakiri, and I will tell you what, you do not see it coming. I knew about the his pensive for reskinning Epos before I went into this. the fact that they were Fakiri meant that they threw some powers at me that I didn't expect, especially throwing fire at me.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, and I died a few times to it. They were incredibly challenging, especially for a melee-focused captain that I was running on. He has to do a little bit of hand waving because they spawn those Fakiri ensigns, which he kind of hand waved as holograms.
Do they still have that issue where they have no despawn animation, so they just sit there dead until they eventually fade out of existence?
I think most mobs do that.
No, I mean, sorry, they don't have a lying on the ground dead animation.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't notice anything. I ran into one small issue with there was a Farasan scientist you take down who is kind of meant as a mini boss. Unfortunately, he was blocked behind a invisible wall and managed to aggro my bridge officers, who promptly popped through the invisible wall and went to town while I was still trying to read the dialogue. I don't know if maybe double walling the invisible walls might help that. I know NPCs can get a little weird when you put them in confined spaces. Overall, it's an excellent mission and one well worth playing. I gave it 5 stars. I love the way he explores the Farasans and really digs into them in a way that Cryptic never did and really is unlikely to do. And I also want to point out that if my comments sound on the nitpicky side, it's because that he's hitting everything right on the broad strokes. I think only tweaks are really necessary if he wants to improve this.
When you can only find small things to complain about. Not really.
Yeah, it's kind of weird with me. The more specifics I have to say is the more you're probably doing right.
Doing a good job. Well, I mean, good KDF missions are definitely few and far between. So,
yeah,
sing it to the rafters when you find one.
And I want to point out that
he's got a whole big series of honor of stuff, right, that are connected.
Yeah, and I'm going to be trying to go through those in the coming weeks.
Excellent.
I want to point out that just because this is Farasan focused doesn't mean that this isn't playable by other races. I know sometimes people will put out missions that are written specifically for a type of or specific species, but
yeah, that seems to be the cat species more often than not.
I don't want to scare away anyone else, like anyone playing a Nausicaan or something like that.
Well, I played it as an Orion, and it made sense that when playing it as an Orion.
Yeah, it's meant for everyone.
Good. So, let's see here. Now, you also have a tech topic, but I don't know. Do you need a little bit to rest your voice?
If you want to.
Because we had another little topic that came up on the forums as we were talking, or not the forums, but Twitter, as we were talking about revamping the Cardassian arc. And I was curious what your guys' thoughts were. You know, what should be worth preserving from that? Because there's a lot of missions. There's about 3 storylines. Not all are connected, and
this would be the topic I was kept repeating. We totally should talk about this on the show.
Yeah. You know, it's not strictly Foundry related, but a lot of us go back and revamp our own content, so it's it's worth
proper
considering.
answer to that, I would really have to go through all the missions and look at what all of the different story beats are there, because there's a whole lot of different things in there, like telling the story of why the True Way exists, which apparently most people don't read and thus don't understand. But
well, actually, in anticipation of this the discussion topic, wrote down and broke down all of the current missions into their what I count is 3 separate arcs with a fourth I'll call other.
Random there's at least a couple of random weird missions
Yeah, there are 2 missions that don't
that don't
really
fit there.
fit well.
The Klingon Tribble mission is the one. I can't
Yeah,
remember what
the other
name it is.
the other one I kind of figured was Rapier, because while it involves Dominion, it doesn't actually have anything to do with what the True Way is doing, because it's actually the Gamma Quadrant Dominion that has taken the Rapier and that you are trying
Yeah.
to pick her
It's the
from.
actual Dominion, not the outcasts who are slumming with the True Way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not the Alpha Quadrant ones, which we get to see in New Link.
The one thing, though, is I would seriously doubt that they would completely cut Rapier, because it's the first occurrence of you meeting Oren, who shows up again later as a different clone in the 2800 featured episode series.
Was that supposed to be a different clone?
Yeah, it's a different version of him. He says you...
Okay.
It's kind of those weird things, because he claims that you killed him when you meet him in 2800, but I don't remember you actually killing him. I remember him surrendering in...
Yeah, I've
Rapier.
just played that recently with our Delta Quadrant, and yeah,
So I wonder if...
he surrenders wimpily. He's a big chicken, really.
So I wonder if it's a
Scared
case of they assume you kill him, and but you don't. So there's now 2 Orans, one we have locked up somewhere, and one working for the Dominion.
It's entirely possible that when he says killed, what he really means is the termination implant thingy.
Who knows? I mean, it's not something that's covered in Rapier, so I can't tell.
Something they could add. A better
but
explanation.
Other than those 2 missions, we basically have 3 arcs: the arc with the True Way, the arc with the Mirror Universe, and the arc with the Undyne. Now, True Way is by far the largest, consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 missions. The other 2s only have 3. So obviously, I mean, True Way kind of is mostly just kind of you got Badlands and Forging Bonds, which are kind of just setup missions. Badlands has the son of the Thomas Riker, and talks a little bit about what happened to them. Forging Bonds is kind of like what I call a super patrol, where it's kind of like Task Force Hippocrates, where you're just kind of just running around, taking care of things that relate to dealing with the True Way. You've got Long Night, which is the you boarding Empok Nor and taking out one of their or capturing one of their leaders. You've got New Link, which is you stopping what is it, Laz?
Laz.
Yep.
Who is kind of behind the True Way's attempt to ally with the Alpha Quadrant Remnant forces, or Dominion Remnant forces. You've got Seeds of Descent, which is basically you helping out that farming colony. And then you've got Cage of Fire, which is the one where you go to the Bajoran Fire Caves.
There's a lot in that story arc that I would kind of hate to lose, especially the Fire Caves. I thought that was always pretty cool. Now that they got the pathing down so that your boss don't jump in the fire for no reason, like they did back at launch.
But I mean,
and there's a lot of good story beats, and that's kind of the main, this is what's happening in Cardassian space kind of story arc, and I think we'll definitely need to preserve that. I think some of the others you could lose.
I think if anything, this is going to be at least 2 to 3 of revamped missions of whatever Cryptic decides. I think there's a lot of just running around that could get cut. Because I mean, if anyone who remembers going through like Long Night or The Badlands one is just so
and
much.
A lot of us have just gone through those with Delta recruits, so it's just those are
They're
really
just
long.
horribly, brutally long. So I think it does. I mean, as much as this is 6 missions, I mean, it's not that much story overall. So I can easily see this kind of being condensed down somewhat. So the second arc I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to say that it actually has something in there that I don't remember seeing in any other missions. Those tricobalt mortar turrets.
Yeah, and there were those interesting turrets when you meet Riker Jr.
Oh yeah, the big giant versions that you find in the hallways
Yeah,
look
those
like
things.
Oversized turrets.
Granted, they're very easy to get rid of if you chuck a plasma grenade at them, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, still like to hit some of the beats of like maybe raiding a base in the Badlands. An episode where you
Yeah, you
go
definitely got to go to the Badlands because that's just too fun not to do, right?
Yeah.
And going to Cardassian Prime itself, I think that's too fun not to do.
I don't remember them saying how many they what they say, like 5 or 6 missions was their goal.
Yeah, I'm sure something like that.
Well, I mean,
to
I could
match
see it.
The other arcs.
I mean, with some expansion of some of the points, I could see maybe 4 missions. Maybe it'd be a little tricky to get them into 3, but could probably do it. Or if you really wanted to keep all of the main points in their own separate missions.
Mm-hmm. You could almost separate all of these into their own story arcs, so that you could keep the content and just make the missions themselves better, but keep a lot of that content there. Because a lot of it is independent of each other.
The one with the tribbles could almost be made into a patrol mission.
Or you could go and stick that into the Klingon arc.
You could. That said, it's not that great of a mission. So if it gets cut, I'm probably not going to shed too many tears over it.
I'm not going to shed too many tears, but it had the fun of seeing Klingons beating up on tribbles and that sort of thing. So there was some fun with it.
Well, one of the things I remember it most for is the fact that it's one of the missions that has the most loot lockers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can dig in random piles of tribbles.
I do remember that, yeah. Piles of
I'll give it quirkiness.
Yeah, it's quirky.
I have to say, I do like that base map in there, though. The one we have to run around. We do. It's I used it in my
Minos Corva, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
So speaking of Klingons, though, one of the other arcs we have is the Undine arc, which is kind of, we've seen them a little bit up till now with the stuff that happened on Vulcan, and what used to be the divided Impera, although that's gone now. But for the most part, we don't really get into what's going on with them until later, much later. But this is basically currently made out of 3 episodes, one of which technically isn't really about Undine, but it's kind of more about how the Federation, or specifically Franklin Drake, is reacting to Undine. And that is the mission Suspect, which is our classic Section 31 test to see if you're loyal, or we would side with Drake over.
Yeah, I remember that one. Primer and I were just playing that the other day.
And how many of us?
And we sided with Drake, by the way.
But did you side with him the first time, or did you say screw him because you hate him the first time you played him?
I said no the first time. I sided with the other captain. Because Franklin Drake is Section 31, and Section 31 is evil.
So I really don't want to lose.
Ambiguously.
I really don't want to lose this mission, but of all of the arcs in the in the Cardassian arc. This is the one I could see getting cut because it's not really about the Undyne. It's more about the Cardassians, and the Undyne get time later. That said, I would really hate to see
Well-
Suspect go because I think it would make a perfect introduction to Franklin Drake for the Federation.
I just realized something.
Well-
I don't think I've ever played any of those 3 missions.
What I really like about Suspect is that it sets up the thing with war games where it actually, sort of turns out to be real.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this. Yeah, I mean, War Games is kind of like the real version of Suspect because you have a similar situation. Yeah, crew has been taken over by Undyne, and you have to basically beat up a ship and then board and stop them. That said, they are similar enough. I almost wonder if they couldn't be combined. That you play something similar. You starts out similar to War Games with you being on board, except this time instead to just being you, Franklin Drake is involved, and it still ends up being a holodeck scenario.
They took a lot of, I think at least 1 or 2 Undine missions out when they revamped the Borg/Undine arc. Maybe they could add some more content to that accomplishes some of these same things.
Maybe.
Just keep it thematically with those other Undine missions.
Or maybe they could do like with the Romulan story arc where they take 2 or 3 missions that have basically, I guess you'd say, a lot of filler. I mean, because with one of the old missions that got cut, most of the mission was just running around a planet and shooting Tal Shiar lackeys because they're there. And that was most of the mission. Which, of course, they took these actual important parts of that and incorporated them into a different mission to condense it.
Like Preemptive Strike. Is that the one you're...
Yeah, it might be.
They go to Raytor 3 and kill a lot of
Sharigan
Romulans.
Sword and Terrace. I think is one of the ones that has lots of stuff from old missions condensed into it.
Well, I mean, I could see War Games serving as a early, maybe if it happened like really late or like really early in the Undyne arc, or maybe like right between.
Actually, now
Cardassian
that I'm thinking about it, one of the things we were talking about in this Twitter discussion was that Franklin Drake doesn't really have a good introduction on the Fed side. He just kind of shows up in skirmish and starts giving orders.
Yeah, and what originally,
and I think probably because what happened is that he skirmish and the whole Davidian arc used to be set after everything. So you could take War Games and put it very early, sometime early in the Federation arc, to introduce Franklin Drake.
Or Suspect.
Suspect, that's the one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Who is it that gives you the mission to mess with the Guardian of Forever in the Klingon War arc?
You follow the Klingons. They lead you there. They kidnap
the initial
Meral, Paris, and then head straight for the Guardian, and you chase them down. Then once you find out what they're doing, you get permission.
City on the Edge of Never.
You get permission from
Starfleet Intelligence.
Quinn to proceed after him back in time.
Yeah, I think it is Quinn, is your mission giver there.
Yeah, so City on the Edge of Never and Past Imperfect. Those missions there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if those involve Franklin Drake or not.
No, he doesn't show up, and it literally just out of the blue, he shows up as a mission giver for the Davidian series. Which,
there's a few little things like this that are sort of out of order now that Cryptic has redone the mission order that could be tightened up.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of where the best, if this was like combined and moved early into an introductory mission for Drake, where would be the best place to put it? Obviously before the Davidians, but...
Yeah. Well, let's see here. we look at the, you could put it in the Wasteland arc.
Wasteland happens
Like,
after
like maybe.
after the Davidians.
Oh no, that happens after Spectres, doesn't it? Now, let's see. Well, somewhere around Secret Orders or Treasure Trading Station, somewhere in there, is where I'd put it. Not too early, because it would seem weird that you encounter Section 31 like right out of space dock. But
I mean,
put it a few missions down the line.
I could see it as
something after diplomatic orders, but not too close to it. So,
maybe you could do something where Quinn assigns you to war games because you're a relatively new captain, could really use the experience, and then it goes all
It turns
bad.
out to be yeah.
Maybe not the entire crew is Undines, but the captain and maybe the senior staff take control of the ship to try to destroy you. It would be great if it was kind of in retaliation for the couple of Undine ships that you take down early in the arc.
Yeah, there you go. So the other thing is the mirror episodes, the mirror universe episodes, which would be kind of nice to retain those to kind of set up why they occasionally come through and attack the Romulan station in the mirror event.
I included 3 missions in this arc, but the first one is it's kind of a transition from the True Way stuff to the Mirror Universe stuff, because it starts out with the True Way trying to steal the orb that Cardassia is trying to return, and then at the very end, the Mirror Universe shows up to take it, and that's kind of where you find out the Mirror Universes, or these ships that aren't Federation ships, are from the Mirror Universe.
So it's not, when you put them together, it's not a lot of missions. They unfortunately the missions themselves are rather long and could definitely use a touch up, or maybe condensing, getting rid of some of the busy work, going into maybe 1 or 2 episodes.
Well, I was thinking that the episode Crack in the Mirror, which has you basically weeding out Mirror Universe officers that have infiltrated Deep Space Nine, could be sort of combined with Shutdown, which has you doing the exact same thing except for Undone.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these are like really long levels, and they're really similar. So I'm thinking these two could be easily combined, and maybe you could keep the quirky Boolean engineer from Shutdown and kind of combine it into Crack in the Mirror a little bit.
Yeah, there you go.
Overall, I'd love to see this one revamped, and because I mean, you've got what is O'Brien's kid, or Mirror O'Brien's kid, who's
an SOB.
Molly.
Well,
no, this is what is it? James O'Brien?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. He flies a ship named Molly or something.
Yeah, he flies a ship named Molly for some reason.
But I mean, he's incredibly unfleshed out. We have some details that were given about, but yeah, I mean, as it is, he's incredibly mustache twirling. And I would love to see this whole arc kind of get some revamp to better flesh out the why they're invading now, just other than just the fun of invading. And it could bring so much more depth to things like the Mirror Universe event.
Mm-hmm.
The Mirror Universe is basically full of mustache twirlers, though. That's its basic, hack. That everyone is a mustache twirler.
Well,
yeah,
there is also
that's how
Empress
you know
Hoshi,
they're from there.
who she doesn't have a mustache, so.
But I think the motivations of the Mirror Universe to be fleshed out a whole lot more in this one.
Yeah, they could be done better.
Why
don't we?
Fleshed out in the TV show, so.
I think Deep Space Nine was able to do it because they spent a lot more time with it. But none of the other shows were able to do too much more than, they're the same people, but they're evil.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
but I
Deep
mean-
Space Nine was unique in that they had a mirror universe version of someone who wasn't a main cast member in that series.
Yeah.
Tuvok.
Yeah.
Actually, his mirror counterpart showed up in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, that was a cool cool touch.
Cool addition there.
I would,
Probably they were like filming next door and say, "Hey, Tim Russ, can you come over here for a second and do a scene?"
Well, yeah, because
Tim Russ pretty much said yes to everything in Star Trek.
The
He was all over the
two
place.
series were being filmed simultaneously, and
Yeah.
it might actually be that there was a break between shooting episodes for Voyager. Who knows?
It would probably
Yeah,
something like that.
Tuvok was not Tim Russ's first appearance.
No, he was in Generations. Which
Generations?
in my own headcanon, I just sort of retcon some pointy ears on that guy and say it is Tuvok.
He was one of the
Actually,
guys
the
trying to
funny
take over the
thing is
Enterprise and
I-
Starship Mine.
In one of the Voyager episodes, it kind of suggests that maybe that was supposed to be Tuvok because
He could have been posted there, possibly.
you
Yeah.
see
Minus the
reliving
20 years.
being a very similar character on that ship. So
But yeah,
Anyway,
Tim Russ has been all over the place.
We do have a tech topic that we need to allow
Yes.
Dragoon to get to. If you want to go for it.
All right, I'll switch over and we can. Anything else anybody wants to say while I'm about revamping the Cardassian arc while I'm switching over?
Actually, we were talking a little bit about being able to essentially add new layers to villains the more time you spend with them, or in future episodes, and Mark came up with a good example of that from Hercules.
yeah, the very first episode of the TV show, you see Hercules fight the Lernian Hydra, and it's the standard. Hero fights bad guy. Hero wins. The day is saved. Blah blah blah, and everybody kind of forgets about it. Then later on in the TV series, Hercules meets this guy named Typhon, who is a giant, and oh yeah, he just so happens to be the Hydra's father. And it turns out he's actually a nice guy and not someone Hercules has a reason to want to kill. Except that he's kind of unhappy about what happened to his daughters and son, and, well, you see where this is going.
Yeah, essentially, he's fleshing out a monster of the week long after that monster has been killed, which is kind of cool, I think, actually.
Yeah, because it establishes the fact that, I mean, in the first scene where you see that the Lernian Hydra, she's walking through a forest in the form of a human child, and in the episode you don't really have any sort of information as to whether this is something the Hydra naturally has the ability to do, or if it's some magical thing that Hera did. Then, when her father's talking about her, he mentions that one of the things that she liked to do was knitting, which is something that you need hands to do, and Hydras kind of don't have hands.
So if we bring this back to sort of as Foundry terms, one thing that we can do is we can have recurring villains. You can introduce a villain in one, or heroes even too as well. You introduce characters in one episode and then find out more about them in future missions, even if you've already killed them off.
Yeah, because one of the things that I thought was cool was the basic idea of looking at the story from the other point of view. Is that, like, okay, you saw it from Hercules' point of view, now you see it from the other side, and showing the good and bad aspects of the character from the, other side of
Oh God, you remember when we were brainstorming ideas for a sequel to H2O Rat's mission, and
Oh, yeah,
and we
a long
were
time ago.
like, we went really far down the rabbit hole until you were going back in time and finding out that Hakeev was some kind of hero initially and a really good guy.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. Before he went nuts and turned into a mustache twirling villain.
Yeah, there's a lot of
There's a lot
cool
of
things you
potential
can
to
do.
flesh out your characters in the more time you spend with them.
And I mean,
And that's
you
one
can
of the
turn
things
your
we can do in the Foundry.
currently viewers' expectations on their head.
Yes. Always try to do that. Okay. So, Dragoon, what have you got for us today?
So, when I was kind of talking to SirBoulevard about some of the my suggestions for his missions, he made the comment that he didn't know how to do dialogue triggers. And I thought this would be an excellent subject because dialogue triggers can actually be a lot of fun once you know how to use them. So I have a little scene here. In fact, I'll pop over to the storyboard here. We have our scene starts where we talk to a Klingon captain who is going to offer us the services of his crew in a boss fight. So we'll proceed to the boss fight here after going through a door. And depending on our choice, his crew is going to show up and help us. Then afterwards, we're going to meet up with this Klingon captain again, and he is going to make references based on whether or not we chose to accept his help. So this is, like I said, where it gets fun because you can actually. This is one of the few ways in which we can really alter the way the flow of the story goes. So, all right, we're going to start at the beginning, and I'm actually going to pop over here to the first time we talked to the Klingon captain. I'm going to go into the advanced dialogue app editor here. And we're going to try to keep the dialogue simple. So, but I think it'll still illustrate the point is. So how about my crew can help you in the coming battle. Will you let us by your side? Very Klingon. All right, we've got two options here. We've got we would welcome your help. And let's be me and say, I don't fight alongside Klingons. The two options. We're gonna use these triggers. We gotta actually put actual dialog boxes below here. We can't just trigger off of the button itself. So if you accept his help, you'll respond with my warriors will be ready. And if you consult him, miserable Patak. And I'm probably spelling Patak wrong, but for a demo, it's fine. Make him angry. You'd be angry if you said that. Okay. So this right here represents our initial choice. And we've got two possible options that this is what we're going to use to do all of our trigger work from. Something to note about what we're going to be using is called the dialog prompt reach. And let me show it a little bit in action. All right, so in order to make this work, we need something else to actually kick things off once we're ready. So I've actually got a place reach marker here and an invisible wall. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a map dialog to pop up. And I've gone ahead and found our boss, which is actually a true way. So this is our villain of the week. And he's going to give a little monologue. You are so feeble. Because he's evil and he has to monologue. And we're actually going to have two options here. First one is you saying maybe, but I brought help. And the other one is we can take you alone. Now you may be saying, is like, wait, I thought the other dialogue had the choice. What's this? Well, this is, the player will actually only ever see one of these. Because depending on what choice they made, we are going to hide one of these options. So again, we need actual dialogues down here so we can trigger off of them. So in this case, if you asked for help, you'll say, no amount of help will save you. And if you didn't take help, let's have him say, you will die alone. Okay. So here's where we're going to make our first, use our first trigger. So obviously we only want one of these options to show. So if he picked the choice where he asked for help, we're going to use what's called a dialog prompt reach, which is one of the triggers available, and then we're going to select a dialog. And all of the dialogues that are directly connected to the map will appear here. This will include talk to contact objectives, map pop-up dialogues, and default dialogues that are there if you select the little checkbox on an object to do a default dialogue. What will not show up here is story pop-up dialogues. Those aren't directly tied to the map, so they will not. You can't trigger based on those. That said, I believe you can. Hang on, let me check. Okay, so we've got our option here, and so we're going to have this option become visible if you get to this dialog box, which is my war is ready. If you had selected asked for his help, and the second button we are going to have appear if dialog prompt reached is the other one where we turn down his help and he insults us. Now the reason I'm doing this as a dialog option is I'm going to get this. I'm going to add a second group here, which is going to be our Klingons. All right, so we need some fed-aligned Klingons. Do a Commander 04. That'll be fine. They're helping the player. And they're just going to attack from behind here. All right, so, and I'll explain what the invisible walls are for in a sec. All right, so we got a group of Fed Klingons here. And I'm going to have them appear if dialog prompt reached. All right, so I'm going to the back to the conversation I had with the Cardassian captain. And if the response that we unlocked, that only if they had asked for help, so we're going to have it on that. So they will appear just as this dialogue is finishing. I'll beam him, obviously. And just to wrap things up, I'm going to have these invisible walls disappear when the this dialog tree here finishes. And we can actually do that with a component complete. Better to have, I'm basically using the invisible walls to prevent the battle from engaging before they finish the dialogue. All right, you also component complete when the dialogue is finished. And you can do a component complete on a map dialogue so that once you finish it, no matter the result, the walls will drop and the battle will engage. And I just got to do one last thing. I've got to take this dialogue tree and have it not appear until we reach that reach marker. So what will happen is they'll come in, they'll trigger the reach marker, activate the speech by the Cardassian, and then once it's if we chose the option to get help, we'll trigger that one dialogue option. That'll have our friendly Klingons appear, and then completing it, no matter what we chose, will drop the invisible walls. All right, so there's one last step to this, and let me double check something here. Okay, so the funny thing about pop-up dialogues is that they are kind of limited to objective in progress and objective complete, which is not going to work for our purposes. So we need to be able to trigger based on, I'm going to go ahead and swap this out. Actually, better yet, I can do this another pop-up map pop-up dialog. So at the very end, I've got a another reach marker where you approach the Klingon captain who's now over here. And I'm just going to throw another map dialog in. And this one Klingon captain. Let's use Swordmaster 4. And I'm going to start them off with a kind of generic retort, just because we obviously can't trigger the first initial opening dialogue. I'll just say, I see your heart still beats. And what I'm going to do in this case is I'm actually going to illustrate how we can alter dialogue without it seeming like we're doing it. So I'm going to have the captain respond, it was a tough battle. And I'm actually going to have him say that in both instances. And I'm sure people think about it, they can see ways that this can be very useful for altering the way dialogues. So if you helped him, his response will be, I hoped my Warriors fought honorably. And if you didn't, they'll say, next time, I hope you won't refuse my assistance. So yeah, it looks like no matter what they choose, it'll look like they're choosing the same option, but the response will be different depending on how they choose. Let's go ahead and set the triggers up for that. So the first option is the accept help. So this will appear on dialog prompt reached, and we'll actually go all the way back to that initial dialog prompt we made. And the second option will appear if dialog prompt reached the other option. Okay. Make sure I set the trigger for this. Nope, didn't. All right, so component reached, and I'm going to set up for this second place marker. So I'm kind of weaving in and out of this being on the story tab, but also a lot of it's happening off the story tab. Okay, I think I've hooked everything up. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got our Klingon to talk to. So for this round, I'm going to deny his help. And he's mad at me now. Go ahead and open the door. There's our Cardassians to fight. And he's making fun of me. And you'll notice the response is specific to I'm going to cheat and just kind of kill him. Yep, tough battle. Okay, so we meet up with the Klingon captain. And makes his comment, and we say it's a tough battle. He says, next time I hope you won't refuse my assistance. All right, so let's reset the map. See what happens. Okay. Seems like we've done this before. So this time we're going to totally accept his help. Because his warriors will be ready. Console. There's our Cardassians. But this time I brought help. Look behind you. Oh yeah, ambush. Thank you, fellas. All right, once again, we go to meet up with our captain. Same response, except this time he's got something different to say. And that concludes my tutorial.
Excellent. Just waiting for the stream to catch up so I can see what you're doing. But yeah, that was good stuff to do. Hey, you even got a blue drop. 5 stars, right?
Yeah, I always feel guilty for picking up drops in my Foundry character, because half the time I'm just killing with the button.
This is completely useless.
Well, I've long come to the conclusion that that's pretty much the only way my Foundry character is going to get stuff. So, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, my inventory's been full for forever.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I think that will do it for us for this evening.
Oh,
Thank you all for joining us again. And Dragoon, why don't you throw up our contact info?
Okay. If you want to reach us by email, you can email us at foundryroundtable@live.com. I totally swear Jorgen checks it. He said, "Think he checks it." He might check it.
You might swear
I'm
that, but I don't swear anything of the kind.
We can also be reached on Twitter at Foundry Roundtab. The LAE just wouldn't fit. Drogan can be reached at Drogan1701. Markhawkman can be reached at MAR Hawkman. And I can be reached at Greendragoon with 2 O's. Baz?
Yes, I can also be reached at Bazalonia at BAZALONIA. I'm also going to put it in the chat room so people can actually read it there.
Fantastic. All right, gentlemen. Well, we will reconvene again next week when I assume we will do our standard downtime survival guide.
yeah, probably.
Ooh, Foundry downtime.
Yeah.
When is this season 10 supposed to hit?
Well, we can
We
sort
don't
of
know.
extrapolate from a few things that it might be Tuesday.
Like this coming Tuesday?
This coming
Maybe.
Tuesday, the
Possibly.
21st of April.
So the day
Or
after
maybe
this show comes out,
But-
but before
but they
we
haven't-
record our next one.
Yeah, they haven't announced.
So in the off chance that it's
So-
coming out this Tuesday or tomorrow, if you're watching the recording, if you want to get anything quickly filed away before the downtime, that's
Yes.
the time to do it. Because it'll probably be at least a couple weeks before we get back in.
But come season 10, we're going to have lots of cool stuff to play with. So it's exciting.
Yes.
Exciting times. But for now, we will say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.